three. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first of 3 afternoon sessions that we will be holding today, tomorrow, and Thursday on the topic of flip fashion, where we are seeing what can be done to turn the current fashion industry on its head, to totally change the paradigm of production through the bioeconomy, through new production models, and through social ecosystems. Could I have the next slide, please? This series of events is a satellite event for the much broader 2024 Festival of the New European Bauhaus. This is a broad-reaching European initiative that aims to give a cultural perspective onto the Green Deal and the whole transition that the Commission is trying to pursue. The 3 keywords for the New European Bauhaus are beautiful, sustainable, and together. And that's what we are trying to do in these 3 days, to do things that are going to be beautiful, that are going to be radically sustainable, and do it together. Can I have the next slide, please? These events are also promoted by an ongoing project funded by the European Union. The project is called Herewear. And the idea in Herewear is also to transform the structure, the nature of the fashion industry from what you see to the left, which is globalized value chains, shipping things across the world with significant social and environmental impacts, as is by now well known, towards a model that you see illustrated to the right of that diagram of a series of local circular production systems that are based on bio-based textiles. That is, textiles that are coming from nature and not from fossil fuels. Can I have the next slide, please? And these 3 days are also organized by the TCBL Association, which is through its service company represented in the Herewear project. So it's a Herewear project partner. And what we do is to promote this kind of event, promote communication and interaction between people doing innovative things in the textile and clothing industry, both in terms of experimentation and innovation, and also in terms of putting it into practice to make the businesses and value chains more sustainable. Okay, the next slide, please. And that gets us to the agenda for today. Today, we're going to look at bioregional models, the idea of regional systems that are bio-based, that reconsider the role of nature in the industry and everything that we do. These are the speakers that I will be introducing shortly, but let me first give you a quick overview of the coming days. Could I have the next slide, please? Because tomorrow at the same time and the same channel, we will be looking at local production scenarios. And this includes things like the microfactory, industrial symbiosis, people working to reconfigure the different steps of production, the way production happens to make it more sustainable. And the next slide, please. And the final session will be about community engagement and social enterprises, about rethinking the business system from a collective community and social perspective. And we will have some, as you can see, all of these 3 sessions follow a similar format with an inspiring keynote talk, followed by a series of short pitches of people doing things that, as we say, are shockingly sustainable. And they will each be moderated by a Herewear partner that is also a participant of the TCBL Association. Okay, that's it for the introduction. I would like to now introduce you to Mariangela Lavanga of the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And Mariangela, please introduce yourself more fully and let us know about nature and the textile and clothing industry.
Thank you, Jesse.
Go ahead. Floor to you.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you also to the team of TCBL and the Herewear project, and for inviting me here today to share a bit of my research and interest in the topic of changing, let's say, the system around fashion and also the narrative around what we mean by fashion and clothing and regeneration. May I have my slides on? Thanks. Today I will share with you also a way to look forward and thinking about using a well-being approach to fashion and textile. And I also like to thank the new European Bauhaus for allowing, I think, initiative all over Europe to share and inspire new way of developing, let's say, culturally and environmentally our economy and system. Next slide, please. I work at the Erasmus University Rotterdam, but I'm Italian, and in my department in Arts and Culture Studies, we are engaging several initiatives around the new European Bauhaus. So my colleague, Dr. Amanda Brandellero, is the lead in the Culture and Campus, which is one of the new European Bauhaus lighthouse project. Where we try to integrate education, research, and cultural initiative in a deprived area of the city of Rotterdam in the south, and rethink how community building and activities can work together to make society a better place. So in the light of the new European Bauhaus, you will hear more about what does it mean to develop something which is beautiful, sustainable, and together. In our school, we are also part of the EIT Culture and Creativity. So again, lots of attention is placed by the European Commission to put culture at the center of our society. And linked to that, one of the projects that we just started this year, where also TCBL is involved, is the Fabrics project, where we also look at how to foster a local and beautifully designed and regenerative textile and clothing ecosystem. Next slide, please. But who I never studied fashion. I never worked in the fashion industry. I am trained as an economist, which long time ago, over 20 years ago, already started questioning what I was studying. Like, why do we have to deplete nature and resources for profit, which seems going in an exponential rate, and why we do not care about other countries or communities that we actually exploit. So my eye was already a long time, I mean, more than 20 years ago, to look at culture and creativity within cities and how culture can contribute to more sustainable urban development. It was only, I think, 10 years ago that when I joined Erasmus University, that I was almost given the challenge to apply this lens, which is a mix of economics of the arts, economic geography, to the fashion and textile industry. So I will start to ask designers in Rotterdam, a city which is not recognized as a fashion capital, why they would engage in local production practices. Those were independent fashion designers that were already practicing sustainability without knowing that that was sustainable. So they would not even use the word sustainable. And some of them actually are still in business and some of them are, I would say, they are really embracing what we are talking today about nature and fashion. One of them, for example, Yoling just moved to a farm studio, so left the city, went to a farm, just launched a crowdfunding campaign to really rethink our entire fashion business with the idea of being close to nature and also slowing down the production. So I start doing research and implement education, and in a university that was recognized or known for its business school or its economic approach, which we still challenge and try to shake through the activities that I'm also involved inside academia, and it's called the Design Impact and Transition Platform, that we also challenge how academics work. And there is quite a parallel between, I would say, the linear system of the economy and the circularity. So thinking about sectors and silos and disciplines, and instead we need to even educate and rethink what university are in a way that is more collaborative, less competitive, but also transdisciplinary. Next slide, please. More on a personal level, who am I, and also where I'm coming from. I'm Italian, and I come from this tiny region. You can see the red spot in Italy. It's called Molise, and there are many websites and jokes made around the world. Even the New York Times saying Molise does not exist. So it's a tiny region. We are less than 200,000 inhabitants. But it was a region where as a child, I would like and hate at the same time. Now I miss it because of the nature and the food and all the beautiful landscape that I could enjoy. But as a child, I was missing the vibe of a large city, of a big city. And the only activity that I was sort of waiting for was the weekly market, which was happening on a Tuesdays. And of course, when there is school, you cannot go. But in holiday time, it was the best day of the week for me and my sister. Going to the market, not in the new clothing stall, but in the second-hand sellers, where we could almost challenge ourselves to find treasure within an enormous amount of what in Italy we would call cincioni americani. It's like a very dispregiative way of American rags. So at that time already, I was wondering why those Americans are throwing away so many beautiful items. Some of them I still wear today. And I was already as a child curious of why people would throw away things that are still new and functional and beautiful. Next slide, please. So when I start to look more at the role of culture and fashion and thinking about sustainability, the aspect that always intrigued me and interests me was linked to the volumes. Like why do we have to produce so much? Why do we have to consume so much? And I think one of the data that it's quite striking, and also I always show to the student, is the enormous amount of fabrics that actually is produced around the world. And while in Italy, fast fashion only arrived, I must say, when I already left Italy, so it was 2001, 2002, more or less, you could see from this graph that it's only after 2010 that fast fashion really take off, and the amount of synthetic fiber that entered the market grew enormously. So while the amount of cotton, natural fibers almost stayed the same through the years, to allow for this enormous amount of clothing in a very cheap and unsustainable way, all these brands have to rely on synthetics. And if we think how much we are producing now and how much we are throwing away, this amount is Yeah, it is really striking, and we cannot substitute those synthetic fiber with cotton, and we cannot have the entire earth or less food because we need more textile. So the question that I would like to discuss with you today, and also think, I mean, it's really how we can reduce these volumes and how we can really change the way we look at fashion and the way we think about fashion and textile. Next slide, please. One of the concepts that came in the past year was the circular economy, which I must say that I always thought about this concept as, or this approach as one side of the sustainability or the sustainable development concept that make it, let's say, sexy and maybe easy to understand, but I must say very, very difficult to implement. It's quite a simple concept to explain even to child, like rethink the way we produce, and that everything that is consumed, it's not thrown away but goes back into the system. So it's a quite easy concept to explain, and I think that's also why lots of policymakers and consumers and lots of brands start to think of their business model and production in a more circular way. But we also ask brands and city government and national government to completely rethink the entire system of production. We are asking brands to think larger than their own brand and even larger than the fashion and textile sector. We ask companies to think not in a silos way, but in a more systemic way, which requires them also to rethink their business, train employees or hire new employees, and rethink completely also their purpose of their business. If we think about circular economy and also the topic of today on bioregion, we have to we are forced to rethink this sort of closed system in a more local way, where we can easily somehow connect parts of the supply chain and also think across the sector. But if we want to implement a circular economy on a more global way, the challenges are enormously. Next slide, please. So in terms of thinking about the core issue of the textile and fashion, so reducing production, reducing consumption, the circular economy does not support that sort of vision. The circular economy as it is implemented or used by brands, it was more to justify their production and try to do some capsule where they try to be circular, but the idea would be still to produce even more than we are producing now, and in a way that is even more unsustainable, because the technology that we have, it's still not good enough to recycle completely. So we have blending of materials, but also the textile, which is now in circulation, comes from very ultra fast fashion brands, and the quality is decaying every minutes. Next slide, please. So what we see now, it's that everyone understands that the challenge that the sector has environmental and sustainability challenges. Fast fashion and ultra fast fashion are leading this overproduction and overconsumption. At the same time, we see, especially in poor country, low wages and poor working condition, but also many of the brands in the Western world, they develop initiatives which are just incremental change and not really radical. So there are some improvement in terms of transparency, maybe certification, labeling, some substitution of unsustainable with more sustainable product of fibers. Even some fast fashion brand trying to take back textile and so on. What we need now is more significant and radical change that really address both unsustainability in an environmental sense, but also in a more social sense. And we really need to reduce this absolute volume of garment and textiles. Next slide, please. When I was asked by Jesse and the team of TCBL also to think about how we can reconnect nature and think of a more regenerative economy, I was immediately thinking about a study that we did a few years ago about the well-being economy, which fits so well with the idea of moving from a sort of efficient system to a more effective system, where instead of thinking about silos and sectoral thinking, we really try to have a more holistic understanding of the system where we are, but also as human, we are part of nature, and we have to think together in this sort of way. Next slide, please. So in the well-being wardrobe study, which was commissioned by the European Environmental Bureau in 2022, we try to actually challenge the system and the narrative around fashion and try to see if we can apply some more post-growth and degrowth thinking to fashion and textile, and also sort of providing or envisioning a different future for these industries, along with policy recommendation. Next slide, please. Some of the common themes which connect very well also with the regenerative economy is that we have to envision a future for textile and fashion, but also for other sectors that, of course, reduce the environmental impact of our human activities, but also support the income distribution across generation and countries. And we also have to rethink the society from a more material and consumption base to a more participatory and community-oriented society. I think both in academia and practice, the concept of commoning is becoming more common. And in every sector, there is attention to rethink the boundaries of our life, like the donut economics is quite useful to think about limits, like the upper limits with the ecological capacity of the world, and also the lower limits with our societal needs. Next slide, please. And the well-being economies approach basically help us to understand and think about this sort of future where we want to live, a future where there is greater fairness and equality, where we also nurture good social relationship, but also mental, physical, and ecological health. And also a future where we rethink what a sort of exchange system are in place that maybe foster, rather than functional exchange, monetary and more system where we have a more sense of community, reciprocity, also thinking of common ways to consume fashion and culture in general. And of course, fashion is not just about basic human needs. We want to cover ourselves, but fashion always also meant something or is linked to our identity, meaning, and so on. So we also want to satisfy human needs at the basic and also the self-actualization level. Next slide, please. In the Wellbeing Wardrobe, we invited many policymakers and activist group and researcher and brands to envision this future. And we used a quite interesting tool. It's called the Three Horizon Framework, where we actually asked all these stakeholders to map initiatives that they know they want to get rid of, like what's the dominant sort of activities and practices in fashion that we want to get rid of. So of course, all the parts linked to fast fashion, but also think at the moment initiative like I think the one we will hear in a bit, that we want to foster and nurture, and those are the ones that maybe we want to have in the near future, but also in the far future. And I will just show you, you can show them very quickly, the next two slides, that gives you an idea of the sort of activities that we did during this co-creation workshop. The Wellbeing Wardrobe, it's downloadable, so you can also read after some of the post-it that stakeholders wrote in the workshop. Next slide, please. So when we think about these well-being economy elements that can be applied to fashion and textile, I was also thinking how we can connect them with the new European Bauhaus aspect of beautiful together and sustainable. And some of the principles that came from our study was, for example, establishing limits. So can we foster more forms of practice of slow fashion? Can we reduce the production volumes? What sort of policies or implementation principle we can develop? And we try to map some of these practices and application for fashion. And I think some of them relate very well to the pitches that we'll hear in a bit. But just to give you a sense of how to connect them also to the new European Bauhaus, thinking about limits, thinking about fairness and governance and new exchange system, something that it's really important. And I think many scholars and companies, but also association are putting sort of a stress on is the role of values. And in that respect, if we rethink the narrative around fashion and textile, we have to rethink also the business model that we use. Some brands have started to, let's say, experiment with not-for-profit business model, but also social enterprise, cooperatives. And I think we need more experiment in that sense. And the next slide I want to share, it's just something that always intrigued me, and it's also the aspect that I think it's still not named often when we talk about sustainability and the future of our economy, is the value of culture and the role of culture. And by culture, in a very holistic way, it's not just the arts or the painting, but also our tradition, our rituals, the culture, which is very connected to place. And I think when we think about fashion and textile, we sort of try to reconnect them with the place where the fibers are developed. And every city, every region in the past had its own specialization. And I think when we think also about bioeconomy and regions, we have to rethink this as values and also as a cultural value. The last slides I will share with you. Next slides. Is very much about seeing this principle of the well-being economy connected with new European Bauhaus. So we can think about limits as frugality, reduction, humanization, fairness as harmony, distribution, listening, I would say respecting the diversity, governance is linked to balance, collaboration, accord, and the last, the new system of exchange and about inspiration, interaction, and prosperity. And I'm very curious to hear the pitches today and to discuss together how we can basically, from visioning the future, really making the future. And you already started, and I am in my small, humble university role of I can support and nurture all your activities. Thank you. And the last slide is just my contact. Thanks.
Thank you, Mariangela.
Jesse.
Inspiring, really inspiring as usual. And I think it's important that we consider the idea of nature from a cultural perspective, not just as a mechanical thing of, growing crops for this or whatever, but we need to, I think, recover an idea of how we connect with nature and how we live with nature. And I think that's a great introduction to as you suggested, to the speakers who are up now. We now have a series of 4 quick talks, as it were, of people doing very interesting, varied, sustainable initiatives that fit into the topic of the bioeconomy and the kind of concepts that Mariangela introduced. Now, the first of these is Maria Antonietta Sbordone, who is joining us with Ilenia Amata and Sara. Hello.
Yeah.
From the Text Lab at the University of Vanvitelli, just outside of Naples. Located actually in the San Leucio 18th century silk factory, a fantastic location. And they will be talking a little bit about if we want to have a bioeconomy and get all of this agricultural waste, where is it? So over to you guys, and let us know what you're doing to map biomass resources.
Thank you, Jesse. Good afternoon, everyone. We are very happy to join you during our class. Now we are in our lab, Textile Design Lab. It's linked to a research and experimental advanced textile near here. We have a very good lab. The Text Lab is a co-creative social space, is a collaborative.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, thank you. So Text Lab is a social space, so very collaborative with local, non-profit, and regional entities. The lab represents a territorial network for local development and promotes collaboration with stakeholders. Via Text Lab, we have collaborated since 2022 in Herewear project with our research from farm to clothes. And the focus was research on sustainable textile for circular economies, local economies. And Officina Vanvitelli was the location, the first Herewear community meeting in presence.
Next slide, please.
For this event, we uploaded all the contents of a conference and then of an exposition of our research applications using a data journalism structure available online on the open access NIT Lab platform. Here you can scan the QR code and have the access to all the contents we have uploaded.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, excuse me. Here we have a sum of a workflow, quite a workflow of our master degree course, where we experiment textile concepts starting from conceptual sketches, moving to hybrid experiments, hybrid material experiments, until the digitalization and prototyping using our text lab machines.
Next slide, please.
In our laboratories from San Leucio, Officina Vanvitelli from San Leucio to the laboratory where we are right now, we could support from stratasys, knitting machine, Rico to have printing surfaces, very, very good machines, and others to have polymers, biopolymers printed directly on the textiles.
Next slide, please.
So the focus of our discussion is about a research convention we have signed with Herewear about focusing on mapping of agricultural biomass in the Campania region. We have 3 aims, 4 goals. For each goals, we have defined some tasks and outcomes. To discuss about this project, I leave the floor to Ilenia and then to Sara. I hope this conversation, these presentations will be good. Thank you. Thank you, Jesse.
I would like to thank Professor Sbordone for the introduction. I'm Ilenia Amato, and I'm a PhD student enrolled at second year of Doctorate of National Interest in Design for Made in Italy. And today, with my colleague Sara De Toro, we shared the topics about this convention, Herewear Convention. The project consists of 4 goals. The first one consists of existing research and census of plant-based biomass by focusing on 2 species. This will be done through desk and field analysis, and output will be a report production based on physical and consistent biomass. Then the second one consists of georeferential spatial analysis by identifying agricultural area in Campania region. The goals 3 consists of selecting criteria for the identification of relevant species oriented to textile quality materials, and the task consists of identification criteria, selection of 2 species, and also mapping them using QGIS software for this specific biomass present in Campania region. The latest goals, in particular, we try to verify the possibility to characterize this kind of biomass and then oriented them to textile characterization. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Lenia. So, referring to the third goal, the first part consists of the real census and the research already done about the plant-based biomass by focusing on 2 species using Campania region references that gave us some information such as the agricultural land use and the other impact. So the desk analysis will be considered the biomass selection criteria by identifying the origin, accessibility, the properties, so the textile quality, and so on. And then the currently research demonstrate that the real physical biomass present reference to the cereals, fruit, olive groves, and so on. Next slide, please.
Okay. So to achieve the objective of species characterization, we analyzed all the process based on valorization of agricultural waste through a series of activities that require the support of experts. For example, we can have a collaboration with DINO, And this kind of activities consist of biomass inputs. We explore biorefinery and new sustainable and circular transformative processes. And we define, in this way, advanced solution and configure them in textile application. Next one, please. In conclusion, the project aims to create a Mediterranean model of circular bioeconomy by acting locally and focusing more on the concept of a bioregion. In line with the new European Bauhaus initiative, transformative models are based on important values as sustainability, considering, for example, climate goals, circularity, zero pollution, and also biodiversity based on mutualistic symbiosis perspective. Then we consider aesthetics, emphasizing the appreciation of quality experience, also inclusion by valorizing diversity, ensuring accessibility, and promote co-creative models, and the latest technologies and EA challenges by adopting advanced software and promoting conscious uses of EA in fashion and textile field. Okay, it was the latest. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
And thank you. That was extremely interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. And that feeds perfectly into our next speaker, Yitzac Goldstein from Earth Protex, which is located in Portugal and various other places around the world, who will tell us what we can do with all of that biomass. Is that right, Yitzac?
I think that your last speaker gave you a lot of clues, but we'll try to fill in any gaps.
Okay, great. Over to you then. Thank you.
Great to be with you here today. And we'll get a slide up on the screen here. Yitzac Goldstein. I'm streaming from you from Vancouver, Canada, but I'm part of Earth Protex Portugal. And like Jess said, we are a global entity. Jess, I don't see my slides in front of me. But I'll keep there. Okay, we're getting to it. So this is not my presentation though. One moment. There we go. Thank you. Okay, next slide. There you go. Okay, so I'm Yitzac Goldstein. Amongst the many hats that I wear, I call myself a biorefinery designer. So really concentrating on waste biomass or low value biomass into all the things that we need for daily living. And this is just kind of a mind map of where I come from and how I got to being a biorefinery designer, because it is kind of an oddball occupation. But I think growing up in the isolated part of the Northwest US in nature gives one a real solid foundation in caring about the natural environment and feeling the natural environment. I was very politically active. I spent some time in DC as a young person, got this global perspective, ended up coming of age during the time of Tiananmen, really wanted to be on the world stage. I studied Buddhist psychology and sustainable agriculture in college in 89, 90, started learning Chinese and ended up for several years on a sustainable experimental farm. You can see that far left where it is human in the middle, but surrounded by nature and interacting with nature. I got involved in industrial hemp. After that, with a Buddhist perspective, started doing global trade in industrial hemp, brought hemp to the world, including to Nike. And then we all know that industrial hemp is a great crop, but we also need to figure out how it fits into business and water usage and soil usage and the air and everything else. Next slide. So we, along this journey, decided to not just work with hemp, but other biomass. And the criteria would be, it should be low value biomass, not compete with food crops. So non-food biomass, like you could say, would include ag residues, food waste, even poo, animal poo, human poo. factory waste, woody residues from landscapes, and to convert it into food, fuel, fiber, polymers, and chemicals. Not just fiber as we were doing in the beginning, but expanding to all of life's necessities. And we really think as a core belief that we can use, at the same time that we're making a conversion of biomass, that we can decarbonize the air, we can regenerate soil, we can protect waterways and even enhance sources of fresh water, protect biodiversity, and include local communities in this. So we're not building mega mills. We're really focused on community inclusive projects. Next slide. So my company, Earth Protex, almost 30 years now, coming on our 30th birthday. And the technology that we're talking about today is specific to biorefinery conversion. It's called agrofinery. So we take agricultural residues. It could be tropical residues like the banana, pineapple, or sugarcane or cotton. But in the European context, it would be more along the wheat and rice and corn side. So we're not inventing new technologies, we're agglomerating. There's a lot of fantastic technologies out there. If you connect them together, you can do wonderful things. And we think that if you combine people on the ground, like our last speakers that are really dealing with regional context, with people like us and others that have great technologies, we can solve the stress on the earth and all these carbon emissions and offset all the wood fiber usage, all the polyester usage, even the cotton that's limited because it competes with food crops, and both for wood products, for paper, for building, for textiles, for packaging, all together a 650 million ton market. We can overcome that. We have 5 times as much just with these crops on the screen alone. Next. So here's an example of what we do, and an example for Europe converting sunflower into all kinds of useful industrial products. And not enough time to talk through this today, but I would like to say that with this sunflower biorefinery, next slide, we're able to compete within the context of the new European Bauhaus by tackling the sustainable housing problem and the reconstruction, even with sunflower alone. So thanks for the opportunity to present today. I'm sure more of this we can talk about in the discussion forum. Yitzac Goldstein, Earth Protex. Let's bring all these things into balance together.
Wow, Yitzac, that's powerful stuff. It's really there's so much that can be done. There's really a lot to do.
Takes a teamwork.
A lot of potential.
Jess.
Really a beautiful vision. Let's move on. We'll be coming back to you for sure during the discussion. Let's move on to a woman who's looking at our body, not just putting the nature back into the clothes we wear, but looking to see how the clothes we wear affects the nature that is natural system that is our body, if I get you right. And if that's even close, over to you, Lea.
Very close.
Thank you.
Hi, and thank you very much for the invite, Jesse. I'm extremely excited. So my name is Lea. I grew up in Sweden. I've studied around the world, and I ended up in the fashion business by mistake, actually. I was not supposed to. It was not something that I envisioned that I could ever do. I come from a medical family, and it was all about, studying medicine and But by mistake, I ended up in Florence, and I started to study fashion. It grew a very, very quick passion, a very fast passion. After a very short time, I was accepted to Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. And that's where I kind of paved my road. And that was 20 plus years ago. So, I've been a professional and a crook actually, in the fashion business. I agree with everything, that everyone says about how, the fashion business has been harmful for our planet. Yeah, so in these past 20 plus years, I've been playing the game. And at a certain point, I said, you know what? There needs to be a bigger meaning to all this. So 12, 13 years ago, I got in contact, and it was a very niched market when it comes to beneficial fibers. Why shouldn't our clothing, seeing that we are dressed and covered for most part of 23 hours a day, why shouldn't it do something while we actually wear them? So it became a mission. It was very early. It was before the whole big wave of sustainability when it comes to how to treat our fibers for making clothing. It was a project that I couldn't kick started because even just finding the funds, it was way too early to actually convince people to step out of the business model that the fashion business is based on. So I had to tuck it away in a drawer and wait for better times. So during the pandemic, I was working for a multinational company, acting all across the globe with development productions. Yeah. And maybe, well, most likely also with wisdom that comes with years. I said, so I'm sitting here and I'm doing something full time, more than full time, because I had emails dropping in from Asia early in the morning, Europe time, office time, teams in California. I had emails all around the clock, and I had to ask myself, so am I doing what supports my ethics as a fashion professional? Is it supporting me as well? What is my ethics and what do I want to bring to the world if I can put a stamp, on it? So I picked up my project again. And in the past 12 years, many things have happened. Awareness has been awakened. How can we do something that is good and beneficial instead of exploiting and making more harm? So I took it out. I've created a new formula. I've created a collection. Next slide, please. So what I have created in the world of active textiles and fibers. So I work with nano encapsulations of catalysts, which not only absorb the energy that our body needs, but also retains it from not dispersing it. So the more we don't work with nature, the more nature doesn't help us, right? So all the energy that we actually should need and keep for ourselves, for our well-being, we lose it. And so the solution in my patent, in my fabric, is to give back, to keep it. We have to, in a holistic way, even though holistic is still a term that has a stigma around it. But I truly believe that if we can do something with what we wear that can bring back wellness, we can prevent everything else that, the pharmaceuticals want to convince us that's the, only way of staying healthy. So basically, I've created a fabric patented with 4 active principles. nanoencapsulation, it is actually an invention 60 years ago by NASA, which was way early for what the microfibers offer today in our world. So next slide, please. Okay, so what does it do? So the bioceramics that are nanoencapsulated, they transform the body heat into far infrared rays. And infrared rays, it's a secular therapy mode. We have been treated with lamps and saunas because the infrared wavelength is very similar to the energy that we possess in our body and that we need to keep. So these are some of the effects and the benefits that if we keep this wavelength of energy, much similar to chlorophyll in the plants, if we can keep them in our body, then we can help ourselves much farther. We can help our, it's an anti-age property as well, because it works on the cellular level and how to help the cells be stronger for a longer time and in a better way. So if we have that concept, then we can imagine, what we can do to give back to our body. Next, please. Next slide, please. So the collection, again, I'm coming from the fashion business. I've been designing, developing, but in this project, I want to step as far away from the fashion as we know it as possible. I've created a collection that has ergonomic design to really give back to where our veins sit, where our main muscles. So every piece is thought to be an extra support to what the science does. Next, please. Okay, so I start being a startup. I have a small collection right now to present, but one of the things that is very interesting with the recipe in the fabric is that not only is the bioceramics encapsulated in the microfiber, which is a synthetic fiber, but I also apply it on top. This for me is the racehorse, because we can very quickly move over to natural fibers and make natural fibers which aren't naturally able to be nano-encapsulated, but give them activity as well. My next coming plans is also to create cotton products, viscose products, silk products, and give them activity, because I really, truly believe that there is a huge opportunity, and it is the future, that what we wear needs to do something, right? So this is my main ethics. We have a last slide, right? So this is what I meant. Seeing that I'm using this ceramics that I can apply on top of the fabric, then also the application of the products of the various fields. We can look at animals, we can look at horses, dogs, we can look at, as long as, it's a living thing that emits the energy and it can be transformed back in the form of infrared radiation. I thank you very much. I'm not the best public speaker because I'm very much in my head when I create, and I need to touch. So yeah, speaking is not my strongest side. I hope it was.
Yeah, That was great. I would say it's mind-blowing. I hope we get time to discuss some of all of this. Really, really exciting stuff. And I can see some fantastic opportunities for collaboration with some of what's has been going on in the other with the other speakers here. Some really wonderful things can come out of this. So
it's exactly what I was
thank
thinking.
you. Yeah, well, we'll come back to that in the discussion. Thank you so much, Lea, for that. That
Thank
was
you so
really
much,
exciting.
too.
And on to our last speaker, something that Lea mentioned was the question of business models. If all of this is going to become reality, we need to find a way for these things to happen on the market, if I dare say. But Samuel Rodriguez maybe can give us a better insight to that. He's from Eurecat, a wide-ranging Spanish research institute in Barcelona. Samuel, over to you.
Thank you, Jesse. And at least we will try to understand which business model we can do here. So, hello, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'm very grateful to be here. As Jesse said, I'm from Eurecat, that is a technology center. I presented them before. Next slide, please. Yeah, I'm Samuel Rodriguez, a technology consultant at Eurecat. My background is civil engineering and internalization of R&D, smart cities, renewable energy. As the last component said, I don't know how I finished here, but in the last year, I have worked with many companies on the edge of technology disruption and giving them support to reach the market, to reach the business models. So next slide, please. Jesse told me that it would be interesting if I explain my point of view of the bioeconomic. And for me, the bioeconomic does not have an assigned sector. In fact, any economic model that applied circularity and sustainability to resource can be considered a bioeconomic sector. We usually divide it into these 5 topics, some of which have already been explained above, but I want to explain it briefly. The agricultural and forestry practice that promote the conservation of soil, water, and biodiversity, ensuring the long-term on sustainability. The biotechnology for the use of living organisms to develop innovative technologies and products in areas such as textile, medicine, agriculture, and industry. The production of food that is more nutritious, more safer, and environmental friendly. And as said also Yitzac, the transformation of organic matter into renewable energy, such as biofuels or biogas. And for the end, the products such as biodegradable materials, chemicals, and building materials that which offer sustainable alternatives to conventional products. No? As I said, I would like to explain or show what is Eurecat. So in the next slide, as Eurecat, we are the largest technology center in Catalonia, with more than 700 employees, 2,000 clients companies, and more than 200 patents. We position ourselves as an applied research center between basic research and material and market needs. We are divided in 4 main areas, which in turn are subdivided to reach all current disruptive technologies. We have the industrial area, which advanced manufacturing or cognitive robotics. Also the digital area with artificial intelligence or cybersecurity. Also, we have the biotechnology area where we highlight the nutrition and the health. Of course, the sustainability area that is divided into the basic topics, water, soil, air, and energy. So this is a big picture of Eurecat. And in the next slide, well, we are talking about bioeconomy. I want to explain what we are doing within the Herewear project, which at least here is about the technology development of circular, local, and bio-based textiles. So within the project, we want to find out the different ways to monetize the sustainable developments that are going to be carried out on Herewear. For this, we want to define the business model of our partners to subsequently fit their business model with the new added value that is created in Herewear. And in this way, we achieve bioeconomic and bio-based business models. The idea that we have is that at the end of our task, we will develop a guideline with sustainable, local, and bio-based business model, mainly focused on the textile sector. And that's we will be happy to share, of course. So it will be open. And in the end, in the last slide, I only want to explain how we can contribute to new European Bauhaus. At first, at Eurecat, we are developing a number of projects that fits within the nature of the bioeconomic enormous, from thermochemical process for validation of forest resources to a network of pilot farms in the Ebro Delta that will form a kind of living labs to promote the bioeconomy, or a research line to find new sources of proteins in the vegetables. How we contribute? This is more or less defined in the following 6 points. We are specialists in sustainability and circularity. We collaborating with multiple companies to reduce the cost of research. So we are together. So we are sustainable. And we are beautiful. Thank you to our multi-technology. We can face great challenge. Besides have a huge ecosystem around us, strengthened by the territorial capability that we have. Therefore, we believe we are ready to contribute to the new Bauhaus wave. And this is quickly, I know, but this is the presentation of Eurecat and how we can contribute in the new European Bauhaus. So thank you for your attention, and hi, Jesse again.
Yes, thank you, Samuel. That was great. Eurecat is an important partner, I think, to have in the new European Bauhaus, and I think it would be important to begin to do some things more actively. In that way, this series of sessions is just a beginning for that. Now, can we bring everyone on stage for some final discussion? I wanted to sort of go back a little bit to what Mariangela was saying to frame this whole discussion, because to listen to the exciting things that you guys are all doing, one wonders. I mean, the potentials are so explosive and enormous. We would wonder, why hasn't all this already happened? Why hasn't it already taken off in a crazy way? Why are we sort of looking like niche actors as the business as usual life continues to do what it's doing. And I'd like to address that question from the cultural standpoint. It's the rethinking we need to do maybe is more just a cultural question. Is it a question of how do we perceive what we do when we work, when we eat, when we get dressed, when we do things? Could we have a few words from Mariangela on that, and then go around our various speakers and your impressions? I think because I think that listening to each other, it probably is, well, for me at least, it was quite exciting to see how these things could fit together and could be a system that could be really explosive. But there's something missing, and I think it's that cultural dimension that we need to understand better. Mariangela.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse, and thanks to you all. I mean, I am impressed by all the innovation that you are engaged, and also to see so much passion and engagement. I mean, it's always what sometimes I feel missing when I hear, let's say, larger brands. It feels also corporate and not real or true or authentic. And I think hearing all of you, show so much potential of connection. I think from Yitzac and thinking of all the biomass to Maria Antonietta, and already what could happen in the region of Campania, which has always been in the spotlight in Italy for waste. I mean, I think that project would really rethink how we can keep it locally and actually make it for the better of society. And Lea, I think your work, I mean, I'm thinking like we are human, we are infrared. I mean, we produce radioactive. I mean, we are radioactive. So I'm also like, you challenge like the way we see like human and body, and we are like dust, stardust. I mean, that's impressive. And also Samuel, I mean, to think about all the micro innovation and to the niche innovation that have to be the dominant sort of system in the future, we need to also make them financially viable. And but we can also make them financially viable without making them for the sake of more profit. And I think I hear from all of you, even if you didn't say it, that, I mean, for you, the priority is making everything better, making your work meaningful. And I think that's exactly what we need to, stress and rethink. But I had a quite interesting conversation with my cousin last weekend, who works in the ICT mobile sector. And even though we grew up together, I mean, I see the difference in thinking. Like he was almost challenging me and say, but the way we are consuming now has democratized everything. So why the poor cannot buy new clothing? Why you are telling the poor to buy secondhand? Or and he also like let me rethink that it's not just people that have studied or people that are high earning professionals, and then the people in poor working condition. I think that's what Jesse mentioned. I mean, this is really a cultural change that have to happen, and it will take ages. But I think our task now, it's very much, I feel like, the responsibility to convert the unconvertible almost. So I was quite enlightened by seeing, at least at the university, a change, I think, from 10 years ago to now. If I was teaching fashion industry, not student in fashion industry, I mean, they were students from economics or law or psychology. 10 years ago, they will all wear super logo and luxury items, even in the Netherlands, which is really not like Italy or France. and now they all wear and proudly wear items that they thrifted or they repaired. So in this generation of I think 20 years old young adults, I see the change, but it's not enough. I mean, I see that they will go into the companies and also, wanted to do a meaningful work, but I still feel we are not a lot. So I am also wondering and questioning, when all of you have to talk with with policymakers, with finance or bankers, what sort of also narrative do you use? Because what I understand, also discussing this topic, even within academia, fashion is still seen as silly. So I still have to convince my colleague that what I'm studying and researching and teaching has value. And I think we are all in the same sort of place, that we have to develop different narratives with whom we discuss and talk. So I'm also curious how you are basically helping the change of narrative and adapting it to different basically audiences or people and different stakeholders in different also geographical spaces.
That's an interesting question. Maria Antonietta, how are you telling your story? Just a few minutes for each. If you're with us, you're coming and going, though I understand you're... Yitzac, it's a few words from you. What's the narrative? How do you see the need to open people's minds to what you're doing?
Well, our obstacle is not the consumer, right? We've seen organic food markets develop in a crazy manner, natural foods, meat alternatives. So there's billions of dollars that have back there. There's billions of dollars trading there. So we know the consumers are there. And in the textile area, we've also seen billions of dollars invested in new materials. We haven't seen a lot of success stories yet, right? From a profitability standpoint, from a science standpoint, absolutely. All the technology is there. All the science is there. We can do incredible things in the marketplace, but we got to have the product market fit. So the consumers are demanding it, but a lot of the companies that have the great solutions are underfinanced or
so it's
only available
the market
at a very
system
micro-regional level.
The market system is not supporting change somehow. It's Maria Antonietta, what's your point of view?
Our point of view is about the research field and education and formation education field. So we have from the PhD and we have a national of interest PhD. We collected about 17 Italian universities. The PhD gives us the possibility to approach, to have a very, very close link with the public entities. So we try to develop on a territorial level our research projects. For example, the project of Sara, also the project of Ilenia, the research project, they took the regional level, and we try to have with the regional entities, public entities, a real answer about the improvement of new local resilient economies.
But does the region
valorizing the local resources? In this
do you get
case,
the feeling that the region doesn't understand the importance of what you're doing, or do they?
okay, sorry. Okay, good.
Do you get the impression that, do you have difficulty communicating the importance of what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Yes, they understood the importance. In fact,
absolutely.
this is why.
Sorry, we are now. I am in the lesson with the students, so I'm not very keen on the code. But if you need of my impression, our impression is very important to have an impact on the at territorial level, because our university is on a territory, an agricultural territory, very important agricultural territorial. Then in the PhD we have a large network, big network on different territories, Italian territories from north to south. So we have I believe our work in the formation in higher education is very important to give the responsibility to the local entities, public.
Okay, now I see your point. You're focusing on the territorial dimension,
Absolutely.
which is where culture lives in a certain sense. Yeah, I can see that, and that's definitely the role of a university as well, to promote that
in the field of
cultural
research,
shift.
high education, also in the research.
Right. And Lea, as a lonely startup, what's your experience on that? Not necessarily lonely, but you're not a university.
No, so the thing is, coming from the fashion world, having played, the name of the game, exploiting territories and people and whatnot, and being a startup, coming with such a different take, actually quite an opposite take to what the fashion world still today, post-pandemic, it kind of has gone back a little bit. It's like we have, forgotten about things, and the fashion business has gone back to, how it used to be, business as usual. So for me, the biggest challenge is to convince investors.
Right.
They understand, they acknowledge you're onto something, but what are we waiting for? Why? I mean, I'm trying to put out there something, and especially fashion, that goes on the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to consumerism. I want to give you garments that, if you're happy with them, use them for 20 years. They should not end up in a landfill. If you're happy with the first type of products because you go out walking, buy the pajamas. It's still going to be active. Buy, your next knitwear. It's also going to be active.
Yeah, but that's gets us back to the cultural barrier, because anybody who goes to a business school it's in your mind that all you have to do is increase the numbers, right?
Yes.
Produce more, make more, buy more, sell more, do more. And it's so that is a business cultural question. But Samuel, that's what your work is all about, isn't it?
Yeah, we what we have found in our work, in Herewear, for example, is that there are many business models that we are proposing, the vast majority, that depend on the entire value chain, and there are links in this value chain that are not yet ready, or better, they think that they are not ready. And this is a point where we have to help them to make this cultural change. That as said Mariana or Lea, the idea is not make the maximum profit, but to make it self-sufficient, and to understand that the other benefits, not just economical one. and this is difficult right now in some links of the value chain.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a shift to a social economy, which is which is a different world a little bit. Right. Thank you all for those comments. Back to Mariangela. How does all this relate to the new European Bauhaus and the concept and the model? Are there things going on, frameworks where we could fit in and carry forward this kind of discussion? Or are we sort of opening a new area of research? How can we come under your wings, as it were, in the NEB? And because I think that the approach that we saw, beautiful, sustainable together, is a lot of what these comments are looking for. How can we concretely get involved and do something and benefit from being part of this?
I mean, I see, like, the first time I was looking about the role of culture. I mean, it's more than 20 years ago, and it was towards the idea of converting cities into basically gentrified places. So the book of Richard Florida came out, and all the policymakers were just buying the recipe, like the ingredients to convert like an industrial area into this sort of beautiful creative spaces, which now became maybe co-working spaces. Also there, the cooperation became less important than the profit. And then you question why you don't just go to a library, which was free and always being open to work and studying. So I mean, it's also a wish and a hope. I think for the first time, the European Union and also many researcher companies and policymakers recognize the value and the place that culture is in society, or should be. And through the new European Bauhaus, I think the together probably is the, let's say, the things that was missing in the past. So the beautiful, we always had design and arts that try to make place and a space better aesthetically and nicer. The sustainable we had with the circular economy, but became a bit too technical or too techno-optimistic. And I think that together finally add the more social aspect. And what maybe makes Europe, that idea of doing something not just for yourself, but for the community and the society. So it's a wish. I don't like hoping, but I see this movement in academia also. We are trying to shake faculties and economics business school to rethink the way they teach. I mean, they are still teaching the same theory that I was taught 20 years ago, and maybe I was not buying it at that time, but all the majority of students study still economics and business. So I think starting from even kindergarten, elementary schools, I mean, this change has to go through all sectors and ages, I would say. And I see I was also in the She Makes and all the labs that are actually doing this or practicing this together. I think that's where I feel we can finally build and exploit a bit of this critical mass. Maybe it's too big of a wish, but that's the difference that I see. I think I saw all these aspects separated in the past, and this community also separated. I would have never met people doing biorefinery. I mean, if it was not for you now. So I think we need that. Yeah, we need that. Those three aspects together to actually see the possibilities and actually work together. in making it, basically.
Right. Thank you. So we're putting the emphasis in the end on the together, which is not just, being hugging each other, but it's about collaboration,
Yeah.
discovering each other, discovering what we're doing, and discovering by collaboration, new things emerge. That's the way we can be, the collective creativity. And that's exactly what we try to do in TCBL. Our main job is to attract people that are different and want to see what other people are doing and get inspiration from each other. Thank you for joining us. And I look forward to seeing the next sessions tomorrow and Thursday.
To do that,
Thank you all for all
Okay.
the speakers. It's been a
Thank you
great
all.
session. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jesse. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.